This is session 7 of our Road to Quran Mastery series. With the grace of Allah, we've completed the first stage of our Tajweed journey. We have, alhamdulillah, gone through the most important rules related to med. And now it is time to answer some of your questions about this topic, since I believe that learning is most effective when there is enough interaction. So let's get started with the first question. The first question is from Siti Noor. The question is, an issue I experience with the longer harakat is that I run out of breath before I reach the end, especially for 6 harakat and verses that do not allow for pausing. Any tips to overcome that? Well, running out of breath is a common issue when reciting the Quran, and it is something I have problems with myself, especially when stopping signs are not to be found in a certain ayah. But there are, of course, some tips that can help you, inshallah. First tip is do not choose to extend the disconnected med. So only stick to the connected med that you have to extend, since there will be less med to extend. Another tip is stopping right before a long med. Then before reciting the word with med, you should recite a word from before you stopped and then continue reciting from there. I usually use this method if there is a long med that I have to extend. For example, this ayah which I read in session 5. As you can see, there are many med in consecutive words. And the best practice here is to try and take breaks without having to complete the ayah in one breath. And of course, whenever you stop, you take 1 or 2 words from before you stopped. So if you're applying the first tip, you'll be dropping the disconnected med, and in doing so, you'll drop these meds, so this means you will not have to extend them for 4 harakat, which will make reciting the ayah a bit easier. Let's see how we can recite this example the best way to make sure that we don't have long meds one after the other. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحلوا شعائر الله ولا الشهر الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا. And if you meant that you can't even finish reciting one word that has med in it, then I would say you should just extend for as long as you are able to, and inshallah it will be fine, because you're doing your best. And Allah says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, which means be conscious of God as much as you can. So if you're trying your best, it will not be a problem, inshallah. And last, the more you recite the Quran, the better you'll get at it, and the better you'll get at dealing with such situations and such words, inshallah. Next question is from Elina Temple. The question is, can you add the Arabic terms طبيعي, لين, العوض, واجب متصل, and جائز منفصل? Well, generally I use the Arabic words and its translated forms in my lessons and sessions. And you may use whichever one you want. And in my opinion, the name of the rule is less important than what the rule actually is, and knowing how and when to apply it. However, I can still make a poster for the names of the rules in Arabic and in English if that is going to be helpful for anyone. So let me know in the comments below what you think about this. The other part of the question was also your recitations. I noticed you didn't prolong the rule of wajib muttasil. Can you explain? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what you mean here exactly. I always extend the connected med or med al-muttasil, and I do not extend the disconnected med. Maybe there was one med you thought was connected or muttasil, but it was actually disconnected med. But that's as much as I can tell with the amount of information that I have right here. Next question is from Siti Noor. The question is, I'd like to know if you could do up a series on prayers recitations to highlight med tajweed, as it will greatly benefit us all. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Prayer recitation, if you mean the highlighting the tajweed rule while reciting the Quran, then yes, that is definitely on my plan, inshallah, as it will greatly help all beginners. So I'm definitely planning to do this, inshallah. However, there is also the system of colored mushaf, which is really helpful for learners as well. You can also download it from our website. I'm going to leave a link for it in the description. Next question is from Noor Nasser. The question says, my first question is how you can tell that you're extending for 2, 4, 6 harakat without using a timer. Is there a way to count it out? And there was another viewer who had the exact same question. And I think this is a very good question. How do you estimate the counts of the med? Whether this is med muttasil, munfasil, med tabi'i, all kinds of med, you will have to estimate. How are you going to do that? Firstly, the word harakat, which is the singular form of harakat, refers to the time needed to pronounce one short vowel. So harakat is the time it takes to say, for example, ba, bu, bi. And because all three of them with fatha, dhamma, and kasra, all of them take about the same time, we gave them all one name, and that is harakat. And these could slightly change from one person to another, but these are very minor and slight changes. And it also depends on how fast you're reciting. So these counts are estimations, and most important is to try to keep as consistent as possible. So this is what the measurement unit comes from. So harakat is the amount of time it takes to say a short vowel. Now the best way to estimate your med is linking the time you take to say one harakat with something you're familiar with and is countable. So you link time taken to say ba with, for example, grasping or releasing your finger to know how fast you should grasp or release your finger while saying one harakat. So you'll have to do this estimation yourself. So for example, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this for myself, and then you can apply the same method for yourself. So you say ba, ba, bu, bi, and try to make it in a way that corresponds with the movement of your finger. Once you hit the right timing and the right movement, you know that you got your estimation of one harakat. Now that you know how fast you should grasp or release your finger, you have made your own personal measurement unit for med. You can now use it to estimate the length of different types of med. Now we're going to use the same movement that you just taught yourself, and you're going to count 2, 3, 4, or 5 harakat, as many as you want. So now I'm going to use my timing to pronounce 5 harakat. Sal bani Israel. And here 4 harakat. Ya ayyuhan nas. And this is the best way to measure med for a beginner. And after some time, you will estimate the lengths of med without having to count anything if you recite the Quran often enough. As for the second question here my second question is what influences the decision to choose to do med or not in med muttasil? First of all, med muttasil is connected med, so it is mandatory. As long as it is in the middle of the word, there is a hamza after the letter of the med, then you will have to extend for 5 harakat. But I think you might mean med munfasil instead of med muttasil, and you're wondering about what influences your decision to choose to extend med munfasil or not. Maybe this is what you meant, but here's the answer for the question anyway if this is what you meant. Generally, for a beginner level, there are a number of factors. First is for easiness. For some, it is much easier to extend anything that has med sign on top, rather than just thinking which is connected and which is disconnected. So for some people, it is just easier to extend everything that has med sign on top. Also, if you have difficulty recognizing where words start and where they end in Arabic, then definitely extending both connected and disconnected med for 4 or 5 harakat is the easier choice, and if you do that, that would be more than enough. And also, like I said earlier, if you have a short breath and you don't want to extend that many of vowels, then it would be easier for you to not to extend the disconnected med, and you would only extend the med wajib or the connected med. And also, when memorizing the Quran and testing your recitation and or reading before someone, it is faster not to extend the disconnected med. However, for more advanced learners, choosing to extend the disconnected med is related to which tariq you're learning. To know exactly what I meant by tariq, please review this lesson about qira'at and turuq. So when I recite Hafs an Asim min tariq al-fil. And this tariq dictates how I should skip the disconnected med. And along with this choice, other matters relating to where you should pause in your recitation and other more advanced Tajweed rules are also connected to the tariq you chose to recite in. And these are quite advanced skills which are definitely outside the scope of this series. But I'm planning to explain more advanced matters in the future, inshallah, in a separate series. Next question is في نهاية آية يوجد فنسي أو السامري كيف أقرأ هذا? This question could be summarized to how you stop at ya if it came at the end of the word, and if it was doubled or it has shadda on top. You'll generally extend the ya as a normal natural med for 2 harakat. So in principle, you wouldn't do anything exceptional. Let's have a look at Surah Taha, from which these ayahs come. أفطال عليكم العهد أم أردتم أن يحل عليكم غضب من ربكم فأخلفتم موعدي. So here I extended the ya for 2 harakat, even though it came at the end of the word and you stopped at it. Now how does it sound like if it was doubled or it had shadda on top? Let's read the next ayah to find out how it sounds like. قالوا ما أخلفنا موعدك بملكنا ولكننا حملنا أوزارا من زينة القوم فقذفناها فكذلك ألقى السامري. So you pronounce it basically as a doubled ya, and you would say as-samiri. Next question is, are you allowed to choose which jaiz munfasil you will stretch and which one you won't? For example, reading one ayah whilst applying the med, stretching it 4 or 5 counts, and then dropping the med next ayah, stretching only 2 counts. Well, the short answer is no. You should not do that. And the long answer is, you should know that your recitation should be symmetrical. And here I'm gonna quote Imam Ibn al-Jazari, who says, وَاللَّفْظُ فِي نَظِيرِهِ كَمِثْلِهِ, which means that you should keep your choices consistent, similar, and symmetrical in your recitation, so that your recitation does not feel incoherent or different. And when it comes to med muttasil and med munfasil, it is related to which tariq you're using, as I mentioned earlier. And in case you don't know which one, then it is better just to stick to one way and read using it. And for clarity, there are many scholars who had different opinions on that matter. Some thought it was makruh, or it is something that you should not do. And some found it to be even haram, for the possibility of reciting in a way that the Quran was never revealed in. I left a source for this in the description for whoever is interested. It is in Arabic though. So to summarize, it is not the best practice while reciting the Quran. You should not do it. Next question is, it seems to me that some imams do not extend the med for the required time. Please explain. I'm not sure if I can answer for others and how they read, Of course, the one who leads others in prayers has to be the best in knowledge and also in reciting the Quran. But if you're leading others in prayer, then you should just use the rules of Tajweed the best you can. And maybe they're doing the best they can. And here is a very important point. As long as you don't make clear mistakes or lahn jali, that changes the meaning of the ayah, or mispronouncing words or sounds, which are all related to makharij al-huruf, then mistakes can be very tolerable. It is, of course, better to recite without any mistakes. However, it is not the end of the world. And if you want to know the difference between lahn jali, a clear mistake, and lahn khafi, a subtle mistake, please review this video. It will also help you understand the position of Tajweed for reciting the Quran. Next question is, what is the best way to count so that extension rules are consistent? Like I mentioned before, the best way is to link it to something you always have on you or something you're familiar with, like counting using your fingers or whichever method that you can use while reciting the Quran. The most important thing is to determine your own measurement unit for the med, which is, as I mentioned before, the amount of time it takes to say a short vowel in Arabic. Next question is, can you summarize the optional extensions versus the required extensions? Quite simply, the required extensions, or the extensions that you will have to extend, the med muttasil, happens within one word. And all the requirements of med have to occur within the single word, like as-sama. So you have alif and hamza within the same word. But optional extension, or med munfasil, requires two words for it to happen. So the med letter would be the last letter of the first word, and the hamza would be the first letter of the following word. And here I have to say, if you have difficulty knowing where words start and end in Arabic, then it is highly advisable that you would extend everything that has med sign on top. It is perfectly acceptable to extend both med muttasil and med munfasil, both for 5 harakat, so you can choose to do that if you're still a beginner. Last question of today is, I forgot my basics. Can I have them right again? The best way to determine where you can start is yourself. You know how much you're capable of. I made a short video which can give you a quick guide and also help you a little bit to determine where you can start from. I'm gonna leave this video in the description. So this, brothers and sisters, was the last question of today's session. If you have other questions that you want answered in the next Q&A session, wait for the Q&A post next week, inshallah, and leave your questions there, and I'm gonna answer them the next week, inshallah. Otherwise, you can always leave your questions in the comments below or submit your question through the website through Ask the Teacher, and I will answer the questions as much as I can. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something new today. If you did, please like and share the video for other people to learn from it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.